Hello everybody, thanks for joining me. Today I'm tying a winged dry fly pattern called the Ginger Quill. The hook in the vise is a size 14 dry fly hook, this one's from RX, and the thread I'm using is UTC 70 in red. For the wings on this fly, I've got a nice matched pair of mallard feathers. I've got two wings from the same bird, and it helps to get the curvature even on the wings. For the tail, I'm using some red game cock fibres. These are a little bit longer than the saddle hackle I'll be using later. And for the body, some stripped peacock quill. I'm being lazy, so I've got some of the pre-stripped stuff. Here I've got a natural reddish furnace type cock saddle. It's a lovely whiting one. And to finish off the head, a little bit of clear varnish. So let's get started. I'm going to cast on my thread just behind the hook eye, and I'm going to run that all the way down to the base of the tail. This is going to build up a little thread underbody, and it'll help to start us building our taper that we can wrap our quill over later. For the tail, I've taken a small pinch, about 10 or 15 fibres of that nice straight cock fibre, and I'm going to use a pinch and loop technique to secure these in. And I'm aiming for a length about 1 1/4 times the overall length of the body. I like to have quite a long tail on these dry flies. I'm going to carry that up the length of the body and come in with my scissors and snip away the excess. We can secure that down at the front and work our thread back to the point where I want to tie in the wing. So I've taken 2 slips from my mallard feathers, one from each side, and I'm going to tie them in facing with the curves away from each other and the points downwards. This way it gives a more natural wing shape when they're tied in. For a wet fly I do it with the point upwards so that they point down towards the tail, but for the dry flies I like to do it point down. Again, I'm using a pinch and loop technique, making sure to keep it nice and centred and right on top of the hook shank. I've tied a few tight loops of thread to secure it down, and I'm going to come in with my scissors and trim it off at an angle to help build a taper into the body. We can secure down those butts, and I'm just going to take a little bit of time here, spin my thread flat, and build up a smooth tapered body before I tie in my quill. I want it to be getting a little bit fatter towards the thorax and tapering down almost to the bare hook shank at the base of the tail. You can see how the wing's going to prop up. I'm not going to fully secure it yet, but I just want to double check the length now before I go any further. With the quill, you can see that there's a dark edge and a light edge. Now the way I like to tie these in is with the dark edge upwards. That way, because I wrap away from myself when I'm making the body, that dark edge points towards the tail of the fly, and if there's any overlap, it won't be obscured by the lighter edge. I think it gives a more natural segmented effect. I've tied that down all the way to the base of the tail. This is the last chance you'll have to adjust the length of the body. And now I'm going to use the rotary function on my vise, and keeping smooth, even tension, I'm going to start wrapping the quill. Be very careful not to catch it on the hook point, it's quite a fragile material. The only problem with using the rotary is that it will build up thread wraps, so just make sure to rewind those backwards so that they don't get in the way of the wing. I'm trying to keep these turns nice and even and touching, and you can see with that dark edge backwards it's making a really nice segmented buggy effect on the body. The quill's getting a little bit short, so I'm going to use my hackle pliers to make the last couple of turns. I'm going to retract the thread. Again, it's built up a few wraps with rotating the hook. I'm going to finish that off just behind the wing. You can always go back a little bit over it with the thread, but you can't take it any further forwards and you don't want to have any gaps. So I'm going to secure down the quill, a few tight turns over the top, and come in and snip away the excess. Now with that all secured down, I'm going to make a few tight wraps in front of the wing, and this is going to help to prop it up into the vertical position. You can see that's made a really nice dry fly wing. This is a great way to do patterns for upwinged mayflies and so on. Putting a little wax on my thread, and here I've stripped all the barbs off one side of this saddle hackle. These are really lovely long hackles, you can get several flies out of each one. So I've made a cross wrap technique to tie that in securely. I'm going to secure down the butt and trim away the excess. I'm going to wrap my hackle, and I'm aiming to make nice touching turns all the way forward. Got away from me there, no matter. So I'm going to make a few wraps behind the wing, take it all the way up to the base, and you can see I'm being careful not to trap too many hackle fibres. This is one of the advantages of stripping all the hackle off one side. It helps you wrap much more neatly without anything on the hook side of the feather. Again, just making sure to keep that wing nice and central. And I'm going to carry that thread forward and leave myself a little bit of space to build up a head. I'm happy with the hackle, so I'm going to make a couple of tight wraps over the front, fold everything back, and just secure down that feather. That's everything tied in, so I'm going to make a couple of whip finishes. I'll do about 5-turn whip finish. This doesn't have to be perfectly secure. We will be putting a little bit of varnish on the head later. Using the thread to stabilise, I can pull away the spare hackle and trim away the thread. Now, pulling everything back and out of the way, I'm going to add a little bit of varnish. I actually overdid it a little bit here, so I'm trying to keep it more on the hook eye rather than letting it seep backwards down into the thorax and the hackle. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of tissue paper, whilst the varnish is still wet, just to get any excess out. Again, it's much easier to do this now than it is once it's dried and filled the hook eye on the riverbank. So, we've got a nice clean hook eye, and after a bit of repositioning of the wings and the hackle, this is the finished article. It's a lovely dry fly, very traditional. Not many people fish these up-winged dries anymore, but I do think that they're very pretty, even if it is just to catch the fisherman rather than the fish. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and you're having a lovely Christmas. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.